here. Darren, how are you today, sir?
Super good, yeah.
Excellent. Yep. And Darren, where are you calling from, just so everyone else knows?
You're calling in from Singapore.
Singapore. All right. Okay. So we're gonna move around the world today. We started off in Florida. We're gonna go to Singapore. So what we're going to do is let's kick off, sir. We're going to kick off the session, and what we're going to do is we are going to hear your pitch. So I'll introduce myself, okay? And you can I'll introduce myself as a well-known investor in Singapore, if that's okay, and then you can give your 1-minute pitch. Are you ready?
Ready. Yeah.
All right. Good evening. My name is Mr. Paul William Bradley. I'm a very well-known individual in the supply chain ecosystem and a successful entrepreneur. Tell me what you're working on.
Yeah. So I'm Darren. So maybe I'll just start with the question. So have you ever had an issue of not knowing to get a piece of wood or plastic getting cut for yourself? And always going to large shops and factories always seems so daunting. Okay. So Cut Anything is actually positioned to revolutionize the way we actually access this and the way the industry manage this ecosystem and modernizing this age-old workflows of customized parts quotation. So our ecosystem is the realizers and the providers, which is the artists, the builders, the architects, where we talk to them and we help them give accessibility of this custom parts. While on the provider sides, we actually help to bring to their market with digital tools and instant quoting system, in which we then help them bring it to the online, where it's as an e-commerce platform, and then we can then tie together this ecosystem. So we believe with our current solution, we can help to bring both of them and then transact and open up new markets within the system itself. Yeah. So we already have launched with over 1,000 users on in a closed pilot, as well as processed over almost 50,000 parts. We also have onboarded about 4 different service providers.
Got it.
So we are actually looking for a $500,000 investment to help push our app and our onboarding system. So we're actually currently going to build on our next league as well. Yeah.
Got it.
Darren,
thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. So I want to get feedback from everyone, and for everyone else that's in the Zoom chat, right? All the other participants, feel free to bring your questions in. It's really great to get feedback. There might have been some questions for Jonathan in the Pride app that was just here. Darren, there might be some questions in the chat, but let's kick this off, right? And what we can do, Doug, if I may, because I know that you're the mentor for Darren as well. Maybe you can direct some of the feedback, right? I mean, maybe we can start with Jeff this time, right? But just, you can navigate and get some of Mitch's feedback and hey, Mr. Paul Bradley is actually here, by the way, Darren. Check that out, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we have him in the house too. But Doug, I'm going to hand it over to you. What do you, how do you want to navigate? Should we start with Jeff? Is that okay?
Let's start with Jeff.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, so just a couple of quick questions. So it was a little bit hard for me to kind of understand all the wording, but I did read the material down the side on the chat. And is this for DIY, like do-it-yourself individuals, or is this B2B, like cut me, a bulk, shipment of wood or tile or whatever?
So actually our target was actually B2B. But then we realized our tool also opens up markets to B2C because it's so easy to quote online. Just send in your documents with the drawings itself. You do get an instant quote from the service providers as well.
Okay.
So it's B2B and B2C.
Yeah. B2B and B2C. Okay. So what you're driving basically is a level of supply chain efficiency. So you're cutting out the middleman basically, and you're allowing people to communicate directly to the guy or the gal with the saw. Or whatever implement they use basically to cut.
Yep.
Okay. And so the value proposition is really what? Is that primarily for businesses? Is it saving businesses a bunch of money because they'd otherwise pay somebody in the middle to address this, or what are you fixing?
The traditional business would have many people coming as a sales representative. So they'll receive emails to get the quotes to, let's say I've got a custom cut, then I'll process it and I'll email it back to you to know how much it costs. So this is the time saving where we have a system to check the drawing itself to see for errors. We do also give an instant quote based on the material cut as well as the amount of cuts like the CNC takes. All together to all the way to even order management. So it's actually digitizing a very old industry where you require to hire 2 or 3 people to actually process your work.
Okay,
so,
got it.
So just on that, Jeff, if I'm understanding correctly, Darren, just to Jeff's question, because I had the same one. I apologize, Doug. I just wanted to clarify this because when we think about it from our perspective, because you're sitting in Singapore, but Paul Bradley, me as Paul Bradley, and I'm an American, right? So what I'm thinking about is if I wanted to get wood, right? Suppose I want to build my own house, right? Typically I want to get some wood and it's cut in a certain way. Typically what happens is that I would go to Home Depot, right? And go there and I would have to kind of get all that wood done. And what you're saying is that with your platform, you can actually go and remove all of the middlemen and go straight to the person that's like cutting the wood down from the trees and being able to use your platform to be able to go direct to customer. Does that make sense? And so by removing the middleman, you end up being able to get that same wood, which was really expensive, by the way, for homes over the last 2 years during COVID. You could get it at a fraction of the price. And so these middlemen that are just kind of pushing wood and adding very little value, you enable the person who's working at the source, whether it's at a steel mill or and they're now able to go direct to customer. And that could be another business if they're building homes for somebody, or it could be somebody that's DIYing, Darren. Is that correct? Have I
no. So actually, it's not direct to the sawmill itself.
Okay.
What we're targeting is the service providers who actually process the cuts for you. Let's say they take a big sheet. You can buy 3 by 2 meters,
Sure.
maybe 4 by 8 feet, but you don't really need the 4 by 8 feet. So you just specify, I'm going to need 2 by 4 feet and then 20 pieces, and I need 6 by 4 feet, 15 pieces. So you cut out the cutting, I order the materials, it gets sent to you straight away. And so we are targeting the service providers of cutting, in which is more efficient because they're already processing the materials on the end and not and then you don't really have to, you just order what you need and then you just build. And that's the time save as well. Yep.
Okay, got it.
So Darren, before I cut off to the other mentors, I mean, you can see the questions from Jeff and Ash were about clarity, right? And you know your stuff so well that you talked about it like as though everybody else kind of knew that as well. And, we've got a different marketplace, and we talked about this previously where the DIY culture in the rest of the world, in the Western world, is people have sheds in their backyards with all these tools, and in Singapore, we don't. So just awareness of all these kind of things, right? But so first point I think you can get from two bits of feedback is clarity, specifically who you're targeting through. So with that, let's see what Mitch has to say.
So in terms of the first sentence of your pitch, you talked about a piece of wood. That made the market sound very small. I would talk about the fact that there are literally tens of thousands of that kinds of requests happening daily, weekly, or otherwise. Paint a bigger picture. How big is that market? That was the other thing I would immediately wonder because of that. You talk about Southeast Asia. How much of that kind of work is going on a monthly or annual basis would be a great anchor point, because then you frame the potential savings. And that's the next question is how much saving, and I know that can be quantified in time and effort and a lot of other things, but what do you believe that savings is worth to the market? Couple other questions that came to mind, particularly when you mentioned architects and construction. Are you integrating with building information modeling systems, BIM systems, which architects and construction companies are now using to create basically a metaverse version of the building before they start? They look at the materials, they look at how the materials are going to perform, if Cut Anything can fit into that environment and become a service provider within those environments, in addition to the app that you're talking about, that would be, to me, an indication you really understand how to get into the big orders rather than a lot of the small ones. The other thing that, we were talking about DIY, rephrase that. Today it's a maker, and makers are also people who end up building great businesses. So in terms of just, overall presentation, I think you made too small an example, but I like the fact that you started with an example because it immediately anchored me in what the customer is doing. And the last question that occurred to me, and I'm also reading your written version, is Southeast Asia your entire market, or is that your first step into a larger business?
It's a first step into a larger business.
Okay.
We actually do understand that, let's say, the manufacturing cultures of different countries are quite different as well. And in Southeast Asia, it's a bit different, and that's why we want to get a foothold of targeting the niche market here first, because in Southeast Asia, rather compared to the Western, countries, we have more service providers actually that are very scattered compared to the Western side, where we've got big factories.
Yeah. So when you say more, that's where I would quantify it. I'd say there are this many. There are 100, 1,000, 1 million, whatever the number is.
So we do have hundreds of, even in Singapore, it's about hundreds of service providers, but it's such a small market, but compared to the Western side, it's a bigger factory servicing a smaller community as well.
Got it. Good. I think, Paul, Mitch raised a great point about the BIM, because we've seen lots of that place now where architects are bringing in the materials from the furnishings to the floor coverings to even what the wood textures might look like, and the fact that you can customize all of this is I think Mitch made a great point about getting into that ecosystem. Good stuff. Yeah. Hey, Paul, can I just throw to you quickly? Any feedback for Darren?
Which Paul? I'm the real Paul. That's which Paul do you want to talk to? I was using the real Paul Bradley. Okay, sorry, Paul.
I first of all, I like Mitch's comment, because a lot of architects are designing this out and they're already optimizing the size of a product. So that is a smart game for partnership. A really important point. Your message is coming out at half of what it needs to be, because you're not getting me excited. You're telling me you're building a B2B model for optimizing cutting of wood and other products for construction, and you're targeting the ASEAN region. And I agree with Mitch, it's a bigger story than that. I think what you're doing is you're creating a network optimization platform where you're integrating all different business construction entities, and you're starting with wood and plastic, but you literally can adapt and scale this to other things as well in the construction industry. You're building the database to control and manage this. It's a supply chain solution. And basically you're creating efficiency, cost saving, and you're aggregating the buying of these raw materials. So by scaling across multiple entities, you have the ability in future to drive cost efficiency as well. And that's a very big play that you didn't mention. So you have cost efficiency. Also, we're burning down the forests of Indonesia nearby, and with the haze and all of that. Yeah, I'm in Singapore also. And the bottom line is, every time someone has a wood product at site and they cut it wrong, whether it's at home or whether it's a construction site, they're just wasting that wood. They're throwing it away. So you have an environmental play in this story too. You want to optimize the way the product is cut at the site to minimize the wastage, which damages the environment. So I think you have aggregation benefit, you have scale, you have convenience, and you have an environmental story. And you're targeting Singapore to build your case study just because it's a simple, quick model, and the supply chain is 1 hour basically, right? I used to deliver medical supplies at hospitals with a 30-minute notice for surgical theaters. So we can do that in an hour. But the reality is you're learning so you can scale into the bigger markets of ASEAN. And if you build the technology right, you want to tell investors that you're then looking to extend through strategic partners or alliances into other markets and to introduce a B2C component to attack the Home Depots of the world, right?
Yes.
So you're literally building the efficiency around the B2B market of professionals. And once you do that, you have the ability to flip the switch and target B2C as well. So if you can tie that story together, and as Mitch said, tie in with the architectural planning as well, now you have a much more powerful story. But I need to see where you're going in the future to unlock a higher valuation. So I like where you're going with this. I just think you told about 30% of the story.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the feedback. Excellent. Darren, I think you've got some fantastic feedback. So before I throw back to Professor Paul, I hope you wrote all that down and you get to watch the recording, because I think you've got some valuable gems of feedback in this session.
Now, I want to just coming back to the value chain, right? Because I want to make sure we all understand this, right? And obviously, Darren, we're going to go to the market. And again, remember, at the moment, you have you have a mentor in Australia. We have people, Paul Bradley as an American, and Mitch and Jeff as well as American as well. So British, like, so we're outside of Singapore right now. Okay, I want to kind of just understand in simple terms, right? Because you've built this model, and again, when I look at it, it's the fact that people, like, if we just talk about wood, right, or the steel mill, but let's talk about wood. Somebody cuts the tree, they take the wood, they put it to a wholesaler. Okay, the wholesaler will then take it to a retailer like Home Depot, and then you have to go to the retailer and be able to be in a position to ask them and help and go through that whole process. Your journey is to remove the retail component, correct? Is that correct?
Yep.
So you could go to the wholesaler, for instance, and with your tool be able to buy on demand, okay, and make sure that there's less wastage. Okay, there's a huge cost advantage. Instead of going all the way to the retailer, you can help them predict the amount of inventory they need to build, and you can get the wholesaler to even deliver the wood, right, if required. Okay, is that correct, Darren?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, good, because I got the first one wrong, right? Okay. So that's the thing. So I think and you need to raise some capital too, right? Darren, is that correct? Right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And how much are you looking to raise?
Looking from anywhere from 200,000 to $500,000.
Sing or US dollars?
Singapore dollars. Yep.
And by the way, that's different. When you started, you wanted 500,000. It was a statement of fact. Now you're not sure how much you want. Never make that.
It's a range. Yeah. It's about,
I think he's giving us a discount, Paul. That's what happened. He looked at us and he's like, let me give this guys a discount. And we really want these guys on board. So let me give him you know what I mean? That's what happens. Darren, when you have Mr. Paul William Bradley and Jeff and Mitch here, we get a bit of a discount. So that's what was happening, right? We started our negotiation already.
Reiterating a point earlier, that's why the rehearsal is so important. So when Paul asked that question, that's the thing that's in your head. You have that number. The rehearsal shouldn't sound like it's rote, just saying what you learned to say. It's, you need 500,000.
Yes. And what's the 500,000 going to be used for, Darren?
It's going to be used for to improve the tech side. So it's to help develop more solutions as well. Just to hire and to help generate the platform. So we're onboarding more people, we're coming up more solutions, and then also improving the supply chain. Yeah.
Now compare that to that you want the technology to build predictive analytic capabilities into your computer model so you can optimize the execution and the aggregation of the activity and unlock a higher valuation. Again, anything of doubt pulls us back as investors. You have to tell me more specifically how you're going to deploy the technology and scale up people selectively And again, it has to be really tight bullet answers for us to get excited that you know how you're going to spend the money.
Yeah, absolutely. Darren, last question, if I may. I want to know how big the market is for you and what are the verticals, right? Wood, steel, you know what I mean? So I just want to know those two questions, please.
Okay, so actually right now we are also part, we're kind of manufacturing as well. We're in the steel, plastics and wood actually. So anyone that cuts with CNC, with a water jet, we do actually help them provide this service of like closing the digital side.
And how big is this market? I mean, starting off in Singapore, Southeast Asia, how big is this market?
We don't have exact numbers, but I think it's about a $5 million kind of market in the construction.
It's actually much larger, right?
Much larger, yeah.
Yeah,
much larger. So
while you were talking, I just asked my intelligence tool. I have between 32 and $100 billion. Okay, so it's actually a little bit bigger. But you double check that. Okay, we'll caveat that. Now, Darren, would you like Doug or myself to pitch your idea back to you?
Sure, no problem. Yeah.
Would you like to hear us pitch your idea back to you? Is this something you'd like to do?
Yeah.
Doug, are you having some? I noticed your video turned off. Coincidentally, just like the last one, Doug, are you having some technical difficulties? Would you like me to do this, Doug? All right, I can't hear from Doug, so I guess I'm going to have to do it, Darren. All right, so Darren, you get to be an investor now. You get to put yourself in the shoes of an investor, and I'm going to take 1 minute to pitch the Cut Anything platform to you. Okay, and we're looking for $500,000. Okay, Singapore dollars, which is around 400,000 US dollars. And this is going to power the maker / DIY community, okay, along with other businesses that are looking to make this happen. I'm ready to pitch. So what you do is you introduce yourself, okay, and I'll have 1 minute to pitch the idea to you, sir. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, Darren, just want to hear your pitch. Yeah.
Okay, Darren, great to meet you. My name is, I have a co-founder named Darren as well. My name is Ash Singh, and I'm part of the Cut Anything team. As you might know, over the course of COVID, supply chain has changed the world in terms of the cost of certain elements. If you built a house with wood, you would have noticed your cost went through the roof because the cost of steel, plastic, and wood just went through the roof. And we thought, why don't we relook at this and see if there's an opportunity to transform this industry? And what we discovered is that when you think about the journey, there's people that are cutting the wood, wholesalers, and then retailers, and the markup that goes through it is usually 3 to 4 times. And so Cut Anything is actually a complete end-to-end solution for the wholesalers who can now directly work with customers, whether it's B2B or B2C, to enable them to be able to provide the perfect cut material, right, and make it available to the customer at less than half the price. We think that we can revolutionize how people are getting these materials, and not only provide it at a low-cost price delivered to their door, but also improve climate outcomes. We're looking for $500,000 to continue to develop our platform, as well as drive this to markets around Southeast Asia. Would love to chat to you about how we are going to transform and be the next generation Alibaba for the DIY maker, as well as the construction community. Thank you. Okay. How was that, Darren?
Much better than I pitched.
That's okay. That's okay.
It's slightly different, but yeah.
Right. Was that okay? Did I get your point across? Did I encapsulate what's happening here? Right. You know, there's elements of the climate, right? And when I look at you, Darren, and I'm not saying this figuratively, when I'm looking at you in the camera, I'm thinking about what you're building. This could be that Alibaba moment where you're creating something where the retail sphere just kind of dies. Doesn't need to be there anymore, right? If you are providing pre-cut, perfectly cut material on time, on location, right? Removing delivery headache, right? Removing all these components at half the price. Why aren't you, do you know what I mean? This is
and another way to put that, is to combine the materials and the service market at the grassroots level.
Yes, exactly. Right. You know, there's the materials component. That's what the wholesaler and the person cutting the wood is doing. And all you're discovering now is that in the digital world now, it's much easier for you to just see the YouTube video, right? And the specs for the wood, send it through to the Cut Anything platform, and it's just done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just
you don't have to do it. You don't need a pickup truck. Although having a pickup truck is nice. I got my first F-150 recently, which makes me feel, you know, I'm having a midlife crisis. So it's always nice to have a pickup truck, but that's a different conversation. Okay. Darren, does that make sense to you? Right?
Makes sense. Yeah.
Right.
So you don't need to cut anything. So just send it out. It gets done for you.
Right. But that's where you are, right? When you think about your disruption, okay, that all of that, and I think that's where you need to be. And this is it's a $50-100 billion market that you're going to be playing in. You obviously have to be selective in terms of where you start, but that's kind of where we see this going, right? Plastic, steel, and wood. If you just do those three things right, you know, it's a game changer there. All right, Darren?
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Darren. I appreciate your time. And again, the people that are here, including myself, Darren, if you found value in the feedback and the pitch, feel free to copy this as you see fit. Darren, it's important for you to recognize that we are not doing anything unique. Okay, Darren? All we are doing is listening to you and trying to bring what we feel you need to tell the universe for your success. Does that make sense? Okay.
Makes sense, yeah.
So I appreciate Paul, Jeff, Mitch, and Doug who are here today. And hopefully you found value and look forward to seeing where the Cut Anything platform goes. Okay. Thank you very much. Look forward to this. All right. Have a wonderful day, Darren. Let's continue on.